they showed in the show in Game 6, there was a little scuffle between Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman. People are now saying that yourself and WCW might have, had some input and pushed them to do that to lead to the upcoming pay-per-view. What would you say about that?
I would say that that's mostly true. But you got to put it into context, because if you listen to my podcast, 83 Weeks, context is king. So you have to know the context. Now, what I said to Dennis, not to Karl, was, hey, Dennis, if anything were to happen off court, while there's a timeout, while there's no gameplay, if you guys happen to rough it up a little bit at the sidelines or look like you're going to and establish that intent so that the feud, if you will, between Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman is real on a kind of a 360-degree basis, not just what happens on our television show, that wouldn't piss me off at all. And it was kind of subtle but clear, I guess. And I did it, and I made sure, with respect to my boss, Harvey Schiller at Turner Sports and the NBA, I did it in a way to, be a little bit hands-off and make sure it didn't interrupt gameplay. But I was happy to see it. Let's put it that way.
Did you already know at the time that Karl was going to come into the storyline also, or you were just pushing towards that?
We were pushing towards that, definitely. I think there may have been some discussions with Karl at that point, but yeah.
So what did you think when you saw that little scuffle there?
I chuckled like a little kid because it accomplished so much. As a wrestling producer, to be able to create a moment, however subtly I did that and communicated it, to be able to create a moment that played out on a platform so huge as the NBA playoffs was really satisfying. Well, I didn't really have to do much. That was all Dennis. I certainly didn't expect Dennis to skip a practice and participate in a Nitro. So that decision was all Dennis. But he knew he had a show, and it was live, and he wanted to be a part of it. He was caught up in the excitement and enthusiasm, and he just decided to do what Dennis used to do, which is kind of play his own game.
What was it like working with him at WCW?
I still consider Dennis a good friend to this day. He's someone who I have a lot of respect for in many different ways. I've learned over the years, and I've worked with Dennis subsequently to, 98 when all this went down, or 97, 96 when I first started working. I think I first started working with Dennis in 97. But I've come to know him, I think a little bit at least. And I think Dennis is, he's a very intelligent man. He's generous to a fault, unfortunately. But I have a lot of respect for Dennis. He's a much deeper thinker than so many people give him credit for, because we're all used to this persona of Dennis Rodman when he was out there marketing himself and creating cash by creating controversy. Which was the title of a very good book, by the way, Controversy Creates Cash. And Dennis inspired that book, really, in many ways, because he knew that he could trigger the audience. He knew he could trigger the media, and he did it in a way to help build up his brand and become independent in many respects of the NBA.